Yeah, we got a good session already, so let's get things going. Looks like we're recording and ready to roll. So again, welcome everybody. So glad you could join us. Thanks for being here on March 3rd, 2021 for our general meeting via Zoom. And obviously with things the way they are right now, that may continue for a little bit longer, but we are continuing to evaluate that every month at our board meetings and decide what we can do to continue safely having meetings that include as many of you as possible. So again, welcome to everyone. But those of you that are joining us tonight, we certainly are glad to have everybody here. It's going to be a very exciting evening. Got a lot of good stuff planned for you this evening. For anybody that maybe is their first experience with CFRI, you should know that we invest in all kinds of stuff. So you will find interests that go from commercial to residential to long-term to short-term, land, buildings, you name it, just all kinds of stuff. And we are so glad to have you here as a part of our meeting tonight. Buffy, if you want to go ahead. Yep, thank you so much. Appreciate that. You know, CFRI is, well, if you did not know, CFRI is a nonprofit. And one of our big things is that we are not just the largest RIA in Florida, we're also the oldest RIA in Florida. And one of the things that's very, very important to us is the fact that we are here to do our best to make sure that we provide information and education, things that help promote, as you see on the slide there, ethical real estate investing. That is very important to us. We want to do that in the best way possible because the whole idea is to communicate that information to you so that you have all kinds of opportunities to learn the best way to do things, to keep yourself safe, to keep others safe. And while we do that, making sure that we stay up with everything else that's going on in the industry. So we have people that pay attention to things going on in the community and legislation and so on. All right, thank you, Buffy. Now, one of the things that is very important, and you'll see it at the beginning of all of our classes and all of our focus meetings and focus group meetings, and our county meetings and so on, is that we make sure we set the boundaries right up front and say, look, we as the people trying to help convey this information, we are not all the experts. You need to seek out your experts. So we're not here to give the legal, the tax, the economic, those types of advice. You need to speak with your attorney. You need to speak with your accountant. We have several business members that are excellent at each of the areas, their specialties. You will definitely want to make sure that you check out all of the business members and make sure that you find the ones that work best for you. So again, as the points say there, you know, we're going to disclaim all liability from action or inaction of our members as a result of communications from members, officers, directors, employees, and contractors. Again, it's the legal stuff we need to say. So please do always consult your own counsel, your own accountant, and all other experts when it comes to getting your real estate advice. And if you haven't participated in a Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting, or you know, we could go on and on, but a webinar type meeting like this yet, consider yourself one of the very few, I'm sure, but one of the things that sometimes gets a little lax, and we want to remind everybody, is when you are taking part in Zoom classes, Zoom webinars, Zoom meetings, please try to exercise some etiquette. And there are a couple of things that are very specific to ones within CFRI. For example, advertising. You know, we have, it's a lot easier to have and follow the rules in a classroom environment. But on these webinars and on these meetings, we want to make sure that, you know, if you're going to advertise something, especially in a CFRI meeting, and you want to say, hey, I have this property, then that's something that you have to actually control the property. So you can't just be advertising property. It has to be something that you actually have control over. You have the contract on it. And same is true when it comes to business advertising. So if you're a business member, that gives you the right to have things like a Zoom background that advertises your business. And even in the name field, you can see all the people that are participating here, like my name up there. You could even put, you know, I could put Jay Span and the name of my business there. But if you are not a business member, then that needs to just have your name. So please make sure it only says your name when you're joining these meetings if you are not a business member. don't promote anything that's not CFRI, and don't be promoting anything to begin with if you don't have permission to do that from Buffy. And do yourself a favor. If you're going to participate in any of these meetings, make sure you test out your equipment beforehand, because it really stinks to trying to get into one of these and find out you can't hear, or you can't see, or you don't know how it works, or you don't know how to change it from gallery view to a participant view, or those type of things. So check it out. We have a couple more. Again, in some of the meetings, like this one is a webinar format, so most of the attendees, the panelists, are not muted. They have to work on muting themselves. But a lot of the other ones that we do, our focus group meetings, our county group meetings, those are meeting format. So you have the opportunity to unmute yourself and talk, but just do us a favor. And if you're not the one that's actively speaking, keep yourself on mute at all times and watch your background noise. Also watch things that might be going on in the background, or things that might be going on in your foreground. Be courteous to everybody. Pay attention to what's going on. And if you have to step away, please make sure you turn off your camera and make sure you mute yourself, because we don't want to hear some of those extraneous noises that have crept up in several meetings already. All right, so now that we got all of that introductory stuff out of the way, again, welcome to our CFRI meeting. And just if you did not know this, we are out there on a lot of different social media, whether it's Facebook or whether it's YouTube or Meetup or those type of things. So if you are not a part of those groups, please make sure and check them out. We do have a CFRI members only Facebook group, obviously for members only. So if you are a member of CFRI, please make sure to be a part of that group, because you can find out some very interesting information. I believe it was last month's meeting that several people found out some interesting stuff that our legislative chair, Rob Arnold, had been talking about, and said, hey, by the way, do you know this stuff's going on in the state of Florida? And he made sure to post that in the members only group so that people knew. We are, as a RIA, are part of a much bigger organization called National RIA. We are proud to be one of those chapters. And as you can see, we have been a part of that and serving this area since 1989. That is a long, long time. So hence the reason we said we are the oldest RIA in Florida. Now, as a part of being in an organization that size, so by being connected with National RIA, we also have access to a lot of partner discounts that you get for being a member of CFRI, and accordingly, because we're partnered with National RIA, a lot of discounts that you can have and take advantage of. You see several of those on the screen, whether it's the Home Depot, the Office Depot, Call Fire, whatever they are. I can tell you right now, I've used several of those. They are some excellent discounts. We'll tell you more about a couple of them in just a second, but again, make sure you know what those are. If you're not familiar with them and you are a member, get onto the CFRI.net website and check that out. If you have any questions, please do let us know. Buffy is a wealth of information on these things. One of those in particular that I think almost everybody uses, or at least knows about and knows they should be using, is the Home Depot discount. And one of the things that you need to make sure to do is follow their instructions for setting up your account, making sure that your email address that you use for CFRI matches the email address that you use on your Home Depot account, because they do check those from time to time, and making sure that all of the cards that you're going to use to spend money at Home Depot, and that means like your Home Depot gift cards, your credit cards, those type of things, are registered in their account with a specific code that we give you, they give you. And once that's done, you can get 2% back. And we know some folks in our organization have gotten some nice checks as a result of that. And they also have 20% paint discounts, which you usually have to buy a lot of paint yourself to get to that level. Home Depot sends me stuff all the time, says, hey, buy more paint, you can get up to 20%. But obviously we can already do that because we're a part of this program.
Awesome. And Jay,
yes.
If they need to know the agreement code, they can go online under our benefits and see the agreement code, or they can call me and I can give them the agreement code. We just can't post it because it's a members only benefit.
There you go. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Buffy. And not to cover just the depots themselves, but Office Depot as well, another great discount. I have used this a couple of times, but I know not nearly as much as Sandra and some of our other members have used it, but I know that that several people have used it and gotten some excellent discounts, especially when they've had to have stuff printed. So make sure you're taking advantage of that as well. It's very simple. It's right there on the screen. Text CFRI card, you get the discount card, and you can use that at Office Depot, Office Max. All right. Again, I mentioned the business members. There are plenty of other resources as well. But one of the things you want to make sure you do is take part in the website. The website is a great resource. Cfri.net is where you're going to be able to find who those business members are. So if you're saying, well, I don't know who, is an attorney, or I don't know who's a CPA that's a business member of CFRI, that's how you're going to find them. So be sure to go onto the website and check that out. All right. As far as meetings go, and the meetings that we're going to have and hold this particular month, we have several. I think there are at least 11, if not 12, 13, 14 or so, depending upon if you count all of the advanced groups and so on. But we have quite a few of those that are going to be held. Again, right now for March, the board has met and they've decided that all of the meetings for March are going to be held via Zoom. We will be reevaluating that again next week when the board meets to see what we're going to plan to do for April. But I can tell you, we've already started looking at ways that we can incorporate live and hopefully still include Zoom and make sure that everybody can partake in these classes. We're looking at every possible option, I can assure you. Now, how do you find out about these meetings? Where do you go? Well, hey, cfri.net, imagine that. And if you go to the website, you can actually see the calendar. Buffy, I think that might even be the next slide that we have. Yep, there we go. So that's what the calendar looks like. I don't try to read it on the small version that we have right now. Go to cfri.net, look at calendar of events, and that's where you can find everything that you are seeing there. Now, if you take a look, you'll notice some color scheming. The ones that are blue there are ones that, Buffy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but those are the ones that non-members can go to. And the red ones are the ones that you need to be a member to go to. I got it right?
Exactly. And also the blue ones are, most of the blue ones, the lighter blue are county meetings.
Yes, county meetings. Check that out. A meeting for Lake County, Osceola County, Seminole County, Volusia County, lots of stuff going on there. And we also have classes. Now you'll notice that we have one already on there that we're going to talk more about in just a moment, called Investing in Tax Deeds with Sandra Edmond. We'll be telling you more about that in just a moment. But those are classes, those type of events are paid events where you can learn some really fascinating stuff. And like I said, we'll tell you more about that one in just a second. But before we do, I think we wanted to tell you about one other meeting that you might not be familiar with. And that is something new that our vice president came up with. And that is called the meeting after the meeting. And we did that in February. It was a huge hit. You do have to be a member. You can see it's a members only event. But what we are doing is it is a separate meeting that will be held after the conclusion of the main meeting. So we'll end this one probably around 8:25, 8:30. You got about 5 minutes there to take a quick break. And then it'll be a separate link and a separate meeting. And typically what we'll do is we'll get everybody in there and try to figure out exactly how many people we have, say hello, maybe answer a question or two, and then go into breakout rooms where you have smaller groups of people and you actually have a chance to network and talk to people and find out what's going on and maybe see who's got a deal or who can help you with a deal or get more individual attention. So if you are not a member, that is another great resource and reason for why you would want to be a member. But that's just one of the many types of meetings that we have. I told you that we also do classes. And one of the classes that's coming up is this one right here called Investing in Tax Deeds and Tax Liens with the beautiful Sandra Edmond. Sandra, I believe you're on here and can tell everybody a little bit more about this awesome class. I think I've been to it 2 or 3 times and I'm going again.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. I'm Sandra Edmond. Thank you so much. Can you see me? Is my screen up or my face?
Good.
Okay. All right, cool. So the class coming up is Investing in Tax Deeds and Tax Liens. I go through the basics as well as intermediate and advanced information. So we'll be going through what are tax deeds and liens, what is the difference between the two, and some more intermediate advanced level stuff, because there are levels to this game, right? Where I teach you more about where and when to purchase the tax deeds and how to get into this game, the tax delinquent game, with very little money. You don't always need a lot of money to start it. And how to make money on houses that you did not even buy at the tax deed sale. So it's going to be a lot of golden nuggets in this. And also we'll go through how to build a cash buyers list and also how I have sold properties on eBay and techniques to use. So the class will be March 13th on Saturday If you are a real estate agent, you will get continuing education credits. If you are a real estate investor, you'll get PHP credits. And it's going to be very interactive during the class. I'm going to go to different websites and show you how to use them, and some tools and different ways of using some of the county websites and some more websites that you probably have not used before. So that's Saturday, March 13th. Be sure to sign up because we are not recording the class. So you will need to pay attention and just be there to enjoy a really great interactive class.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. And yeah, in case you didn't catch that, it is a fantastic class. Like I said, I'm attending it again because I know Sandra's got new stuff, more information. I'll learn even more this time, and it's really worthwhile. So you definitely want to be signed up for that. And if you need more help in signing up, please do ask Buffy about that, and she can help you get signed up for that class. All right. In addition to that one, we've got a class coming up in April. This is going to be on Thursday, April 22nd. Another excellent class. And Joe Seagle is an awesome attorney that is going to talk about land trust and subject to. And Joe, I believe you're on here and can tell us a little bit about your class as well.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm going to be giving this one. I've done this one or two times before. It's always very popular with everybody because not only do we talk about land trusts and then subject to transactions, we put those together and talk about how you can use land trust in subject to transactions and how that works. The documents, we also have sample documents that you can use. And I talk all about, give you great stories about things that have gone bad, things that have gone well. And it's only $44 for members, $64 for non-members. It's a great opportunity. Also not being recorded. So you'll have to come, put your thinking hats on, listening ears on, and talking mouths on so that we can discuss, because I love to get feedback during the seminar so I can answer questions. That usually takes me off on tangents with even more stories. So I enjoy these, and I'd enjoy to see as many people there as possible because we have a great time. And I've had a lot of great feedback about the stories I tell during these classes, and I'm very happy to share that experience with everybody.
Fantastic, Joe. Thank you. And again, I can tell you, I've been to Joe's classes. They are fantastic. And he does have some great stories. Looking forward to hearing some more of those when that comes up in April. So again, make sure you know when those classes are. And if you're thinking to yourself, you know, maybe I should try this out. Maybe I should be a member. Well, guess what? We have a limited time offer that you can partake in. That is something that we're trying out. Has not been done before, but now's your chance to really check it out. And that is, if you really, really, really want to try this out, you know, you're not a member of CFRI yet. What about a 3-month trial membership for one person for only $75? And Buffy, I think I did this last month and said, hey, tell us a little bit more about this. Why should we consider this? If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you that one more time.
Why should we consider this? Awesome. It's absolutely awesome. Right now, you get to go to about 14 Zoom meetings a month. Doesn't cost you a dime to go. You can go from the comfort of your own home, from your couch, from your bed, from your car, from your office. And it's only $75 for the 3 months. If you decide during those 3 months that you'd like to upgrade and become a general member, I got a deal for you. You just contact me and you will get a discount on that as well. We'll take the unused portion of your $75 and we'll put that towards a general membership, and we'll also give you a little bit bonus credit for it as well. So you have nothing to lose. 3-month trial general membership, and it's for one person only. And I encourage everyone to join now.
Outstanding. And you heard her, nothing to lose and everything to gain. So now's your chance to try it out. You never know if we'll continue to offer that deal or not, but here's your chance to be one of the select few, especially if we decide we're just going to go back to only the full memberships.
Well, and the other thing too is you get to be a part of our members only Facebook group. And that right there is well over $75 worth.
I was going to say that's invaluable.
So
it only takes one awesome. Good tip there.
Yep.
Very true. All right. Now, in addition to being on social media, we also have this cool thing called the CFRI Podcast, where you can learn more about who some of these people are that you're seeing on the screen and that are leading our classes and leading our focus groups and teaching you all of this information. And if you haven't ever checked it out before, I encourage you to do that, because as you can see, we have quite a few episodes on there with a lot of very interesting people that have a lot of very interesting stories. All the usual channels as far as Spotify, Stitcher, you name it, but definitely check that out as a resource. All right. Enough of my talking. It's time to switch things over and hand it off to our current Vice President, Mr. Stephen Young, who is going to do not one, but 2 different deals of the month, which are going to present some very interesting information. I've already gotten a chance to check them out, so I know you will really like these. Stephen, off to you.
All right, great. Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. So guys, anyone out there, if you have deals, send them to the email address you see on screen, vicepresident@cfri.net. I'm taking any and all deals, big or small, whether you made money, lost money, we're taking them all. So it's a great opportunity for you to share your story and help other investors, right? Inspire them and get moving forward. So first, I want to welcome David Pupo. He is the first deal of the month that we have this month, and it's a wholesale deal. So the theme tonight is all wholesale deals. So let's see, David, are you there?
What's up? How's everybody doing?
Good, man. You gave me a scare there, David. Come on, man. It's too early. Too early for
Hey, man,
heart
I gotta
attacks.
keep everybody on their toes.
Hey, all right, very good. Well, let's keep it going with this deal. So this is actually appears to be 2 deals here. First question, when did you get this deal? When did you get it?
Yeah, we got it under contract at the beginning of January. We closed on it about a month later. The deal didn't come into our pipeline until the beginning of December, though. So it took about a month to get under contract.
Okay, and you talked about your pipeline. So again, you're a wholesaler, if people don't know that by now. What was your method for getting the deal?
Yeah, so one of the ways that we've been really expanding our operation is doing a lot more on the online presence. This deal came through us on pay-per-click, or what people really just call as PPC. So,
okay,
don't do it right now because it costs me money. But like when you type in, I'm trying to sell my house cash, like our company is one of the ones that are one of the premier companies that show up when you're doing that in Google. Don't do it now. Please don't do it now. I don't want to pay extra than I already have.
Okay, so typically when we talk about people who want to wholesale or just starting out, pay-per-click isn't the route to go.
No, absolutely not. And so we did, when we did the Wholesaling Academy a couple of weeks ago, one of the big things I emphasize is, do you have the time or do you have the money? And the thing with PPC is that it actually is a little bit of both. It takes a lot of refining, and the only way you refine is by people submitting in forms and leads and stuff like that, and that's costing you. And if you keep it very, very, very open, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So you want to filter out and refine a lot of the searches that people are putting in to get to your pages.
Okay, great. So yeah, so this is definitely like an expert level, you got to know what you're doing type strategy. Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Before we go to the next slide, just to be clear, just so people understand, what are we looking at? These are duplexes, triplexes. What's going on here?
Yeah, so both of them are owned by the same seller. They're both quadruplexes. So
Got it.
It is a total, as we have at the bottom, 16 bedrooms, 8 baths. Each unit is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So each quad, 8 bedrooms, 4 baths.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Okay, next slide. All right, so now we're starting to get into the numbers a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone can see that there. So you got each of them for 170. You estimate the after repair value for each at 260. Estimated repair 0. We will touch on that on the next slide, so let's not spoil that for everyone just yet. But the numbers that you got here. So what was the motivations for the seller to want to let this property go at that price?
Yeah. So one of the best lists, but also the most used list, is that absentee equity, right? So when people are doing a lot of direct mail, you're really hoping that your timing a landlord that's over it, right? They're just simply over it. And even with how great a condition these properties were in, the people, it was a wife and a husband. So the wife and the husband, all their family was in South Florida and also in part of the Caribbean, and their children were starting to have children. So they're here in Ocala, living near their properties, but all their families in South Florida or in the Caribbean, and they were just really getting homesick. The dealing with tenants, when you kind of already have it mentally checked out, dealing with the small minutia that is a tenant, it ends up expanding a lot more. And so we got to them at a time where they submitted over to us, and yeah, they were just about ready to just get it going.
Okay, excellent. And just kept moving. All right, very good. That's very interesting to hear. So cap rate, you got cap rate here. I'm not sure a lot of people know what that is or understand what that is. Could you just briefly talk about that?
Yeah, so what a cap rate stands for is capitalization rate. A capitalization or a cap rate is really used when you start assessing multifamily commercial value, bigger overall properties.
Okay.
I'll do a little drop right here, but when we were working together on the one that I was able to sell you and Jazz, I did a gross ROI, a net ROI, and then a cap. And then in the real end, the net ROI is pretty similar to a cap rate, but a cap rate's really good at just magnifying the amount of units that are needed.
Okay, very good. And then you got here the asking price for both was $394, $995. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. What I want to point to now, and especially for people just starting out thinking about being a wholesaler, how important is it to have a good handle on these numbers, right? Like we talk about, you're getting it at a good price, but then being able to evaluate it, understand the repairs. In this case, it was good. But how important is it for a wholesaler to pay attention to that and know those numbers?
I mean, there's no other way of really putting it. It's like trying to learn the back of a book without reading the first couple of chapters of the book. It's that easy.
Yeah.
If you don't learn the first couple of chapters in any textbook, the end of it is going to be essentially a different language to you. So knowing your numbers is such a foundational piece. I mean, you can't literally be a sustaining business, especially in wholesaling, if you're not doing the right numbers. So that's
Gotcha.
the first and foremost thing. And that's why it's real estate investing. It's not real estate guessing, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. Very good. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that answer. Okay, next slide, Buffy. So typically, for those that are new, this is where we talk about the rehab. Oh, what did you do? What was the issues you faced? But in this case, it sounded like everything was in order. So let's talk a little bit about that, the condition of the properties.
Yeah, I mean, once again, the gentleman had put in a fair amount of rehab, as you can kind of see by this picture. They put in a new driveway or a parking lot area for the units. You can tell by that picture. They keep the grounds, aka the landscaping, cleaned up. The roofs were all done within the last 3 years. Everything was pretty good. I mean, I really would love to be able to find a lot of gaps. I mean, in the end, there really wasn't too many. I walked many of the properties myself. I went up to Ocala for the day to go check these out.
Okay, very good. All right, and again, that just kind of brings full circle. They were just motivated. It was just the right time, right place. They had done all this work, and then they're like, you know what? I don't care. I'm done. So
yeah. So and that's the beauty of the PPC route there, Steve, is that they're submitting to us, right? Rather than what we're always used to doing in wholesaling world, the hunting.
We're chasing,
sending out a lot of direct mail. We're sending out text messages. We're putting out bandit signs. It's all hunting.
Yeah.
PPC is one of the very few ones that's gathering. So, you pay a lot to do it, but those leads are submitted to you. So then it's up to you to be able to turn that lukewarm, lead into now a hot lead.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay, next slide, Buffy. So let's see how you did, David. Let's see how you did. All right. Okay, not bad. Not bad at all.
Not too shabby.
$53K. You got them sold for $197 each. You got a great assignment. So before we get too deep in the weeds, let's first talk about what's an assignment. And then let's talk about some of the issues you faced while trying to close.
Sure. So an assignment is essentially in many contracts, especially in FAR bars and pretty much any other real estate contracts used, there's usually a typical section called an assignment. And assigning is you are assigning your interest, your benefited interest in the property, and you're assigning it to another interest.
Okay.
You can charge more on it. I wouldn't know why you wouldn't charge more, because then
Sure.
that's what you call an assignment fee. You are paying you're getting paid to be able to find a deal, and you're assigning at a higher cost to another buyer.
Right. And they're still getting a pretty good deal at the end of the day. Right?
Yeah. So when we did the cap rates, it was at the current market rent. The current rent, not the current market rent. As we showed on the last one, there was $1,000 more to collect on a monthly basis on this one. So, there was a lot of room to even still grow on each unit.
To make some profit potential.
Right.
Very good. So issues that we had talked offline, and you said you were having some issues with the seller, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Like they kind of disappeared on you for a little bit. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So as I alluded to, we got the lead in early December. I think within the first week, or I think it was like the 7th or 9th or something like that.
Right.
And we didn't get it under contract until the 11th of January. But what we did is we actually sent over a contract. The money, the real moral of the story here is the money is always in the follow-up. We're going to pursue a lead until we get a no. I've even hired a now cold caller to now saturate our database even more. Like, I want no's. If there's a no, if there's anybody in between, we're going to push them to either a no or a yes. I don't want any in-betweeners anymore. So the money was in the follow-up here. Our acquisition person was following up with them because once again, they submitted the lead to us. So we knew that there's somewhat of a motivation there.
Right.
But we need to find it. So it took us a couple of weeks, took us about 2 weeks to get the husband on the phone. Finally got him on the phone. He wouldn't disclose what price he wanted. One of my favorite things, and if anybody who's going to get into wholesaling, your favorite line in this entire universe is going to be, make me an offer, right? Right. So when make me an offer is that anytime somebody says that, they typically already have a price in mind. So I taught our acquisition person really well to be able to, go about it a different route, scenario, see if you can get something out. You wouldn't budge. So when we are doing our numbers, this is why you know your numbers right here. Because a very popular method that I use is that if you're not going to give me your number, I'm going to make you flinch.
Okay.
And what I mean by flinching in this world, so this is a little negotiation tip for the people. It's called price anchoring. So I'm going to drop a very low number. I want to see where your reaction is to this.
Right.
And so we did a price anchor on him. We asked him 2 or 3 times, kept on saying, you make me the offer, you make me an offer. So sometimes I'll just say, all right, we'll do it this. And we did 170. That was our anchor job. And he was like, okay, well, you know what? I actually was thinking a little bit more, but 170 seems pretty good to me.
You took it. That's excellent.
So we took it. It doesn't happen too often. So I'm not going to tell you, go drop anchors on every single person. It's after a series of no's where this is dropped in. If you start with this, you're probably going to lose them. You're going into it too aggressively. So we did the price anchor and we sent it over through DocuSign. And this is where you really got to know your audience, right? So our acquisition person sent it over through DocuSign. We went through, obviously, like I said, they agreed on the price, terms, everything looked good.
Right.
It just became radio silence, man. Like we tried contacting them, tried emailing them, and nothing. They would not get back to her. And that took another 2 weeks of following up. And at a certain point, she just goes, I can't get a hold of them.
Yeah.
So another negotiation tip or approach that we used on this one is called the tandem approach. So in wholesaling, just like almost any other sales, if somebody's kind of ducking your call and they see your number, they're not going to answer it, So what I told her is, hey, give me the phone number. I'll call the person. And sure enough, the tandem approach worked. That I was the one calling with a different phone number. He picked up. And I just simply asked him,
I see.
Our acquisition person, hey, they sent you over the contract. What was the reason you haven't either signed or decided to reach back out to us? And it's the smallest little things, man, but the smallest things can sometimes amount to the biggest effects. And he was simply just an older gentleman who was like, I don't want to deal with technology. I want to do this face to face.
Okay.
And I was like, after all this time, I was like, you couldn't have just said that? Like,
Right. Yeah. No.
why didn't you just
That's
like
too easy.
give us a call? We could have easily done that. But there we go. He didn't want to use technology. He didn't want to do the DocuSign route. So we went up there and we got the contract signed. So know your audience right there. So he was like, I want to be old school. I want to be a face-to-face. I want to know who I'm doing business with. So we're like, all right, fine. We'll go up there. It's not a big deal.
All right. Very good. So to allow for time, I'm just going to have two more questions for you, but just real briefly, the buyers. So between getting the contract signed on the 11th, how quickly did you get a buyer? And, what's the importance of building relationships with those buyers?
100%, man. That's where you really start building up VIP buyers for anybody that's going to be introducing or even still in wholesaling. Build up a VIP buyers list, because this was, I think, one of my first 3 to 5 calls to the buyer that I knew was buying in Ocala, and just through networking, I found out that he was buying out multifamilies out in Ocala. So I called him. And walked him through the deal, sent him we didn't even get to send this out to the masses. We just made a draft of our write-up, sent it over to him. He's like, I'm good, I'll buy it.
I'll do it. Excellent.
That was it. He saw it. And that's in the value of taking so many pictures. We took over 40 pictures of each quadruplex. So he looked through it. He's like, let me just walk it one time, but I'm buying it. I'm putting the EMD down tomorrow. So it was bought within 3 to 5 calls.
Excellent. It's like every investor's dream, especially wholesaler. Every wholesaler, maybe flipper's dream. Excellent. Very good.
This one actually panned out pretty seamless. It doesn't happen too often, but once again, remember that the money is in that follow-up. And there was a lot of strategies here that people get tripped up on. Like I said, the little stupid thing of not giving a price. And they go radio silence on you. So a stupid little tandem approach. I mean, it doesn't work all the time, but you got to have some resources in that utility belt. And luckily enough, we were able to have enough resources for us to get this done.
Excellent. Okay, last slide, Buffy, and you answered my last question already. So,
and Stephen, did you happen to see that one question that was in the Q&A thread that we might be able to answer that real quick?
Yep, stole my thunder again, Jay.
Oh man, did I beat you to it again? I'm sorry.
I'm going right to it now. Yeah, no, it's perfect. So yes, so there is a question here from Ed Hall. Let's see here. On an assignment fee, can that be used with a lender transaction? In other words, will a lender allow it? And if not, can you get that fee from a buyer outside of the lender?
I wouldn't go about that approach. If it's like a conventional lender, like let's just say Bank of America or something like that, they're not going to allow assignment fees. I know even hard money lenders are starting to crack down on assignment fees. So you just got to make sure that one of my favorite things, and I think a lot of the people that are on this that's done business with me, be open, be transparent. That's how things get done the easiest. If you're trying to hide something, it's gonna eventually come up. There is no other way of putting it. Especially, I mean, flip back. You saw what we made. You can't hide that. You can't hide $53,000.
Yeah.
So when and by the way, the buyer's lender was asking, and I go, hey Rob, I'm just gonna be honest with you. This is what we got for each of them. And I even told him, I was like, hey, we price anchored him, and he accepted. I didn't think it was gonna happen, but it did. And they were like, all right, well, hey, we're good. At least now I know.
Very good. All right.
So conventional, no. Hard money, maybe. If you're doing a big one like that, I would say you might want to reconsider doing maybe like a simultaneous or double close.
Okay, very good. One last question. I almost missed it here. Why didn't you keep it as a rental for your portfolio?
Yeah. Believe me, I did think about it a lot. I remember actually, it was actually at a restaurant on a Thursday night or a Friday night where we just got this under contract, and I was just thinking about it a lot, and my wife could tell. She's like, "Do you want to just say this because you seem very distracted?" Because it's obviously 8 units, right? And they were turnkey. The The reason why we did not decide to take this one down is simply because in the beginning of the quarter, we made a goal for Florida house buyers that we were going to hit a certain net profit for the company in quarter one. And as you kind of saw those numbers, $53,000 goes a long way. And I understand the short-term versus the long-term play. It was certainly something, but I'm also running a wholesaling company. And for people that are starting to get to the levels that we're at, it eats a lot of cash. So you got to make sure you can get those kind of big deals done when they make themselves available. Believe me, it won't happen all the time where we sell these, but it was something that was very critical for us to be able to sell, and it has indeed left us in a really good position for quarter one.
Excellent. Very good. Well, David, I want to say thank you for taking the time to share this deal. Again, all his information, we tried to be a little smarter about this time go around. Thank you, David. This is actually David's idea. All his information, contact information, phone numbers, how you can reach out to him, it's all there on screen. I didn't mention this before, but David is on the board. He's our current marketing director, and he's also a business member for CFRI. So
Sure am.
make sure you reach out to him, talk to him if you got questions or want to learn more about the deal. Again, thank you, David. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
No problem. All right. Next, we're going to have Jantzen Young come on. She's actually my wife. So if you guys are wondering, like, what's with the last name? Yep, she's actually my wife. We're in business together, and she's now going to talk about a wholesale deal that involves vacant land as opposed to a brick and mortar building.
That's
So,
right.
hey, welcome.
Yes, hi.
All right. So same question like with David. When did you get this deal and what was your method?
So we got this deal from our direct mail marketing campaign. Funny enough, the campaign was mailed out in January, and the client called us of last year, and the client called us in October. And we're just wondering, hey, is this offer still valid? So I said, yeah, obviously.
Okay, very good. So interesting. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so what's this about? So
I put this in because I knew that after David's amazing quadplex deal and the big numbers, half y'all just zoned out. Okay, give me a chance. Vacant land is something that's usually looked over, but hopefully when you see the whole process, it'll be a bit more interesting. So hang in there with me, guys. It's cool, I promise.
all right, cool, very good. Okay, next slide. So land is a bit different. I see the price here after repair value. So, and obviously there's no repairs.
Yeah.
And Buffy, if you roll your to the next, I think it's an animation that's going to come up, which is kind of funny. Okay. So with land, obviously there's no repairs that were needed. So let's talk about the after repair value.
Yeah.
Since there's no home being built on this, how do you come up with that?
Yeah, I just look at the market value. So in Florida, most counties in Florida, when they evaluate land, it's actually quite close to market value, usually between 85 and 90% of market value. So that's a good cheat code. But I still pull comps the same way that you would pull comps on a house. I just look around and see what other comparable land has sold in this area. Usually for houses, you're going back 3 months. In land, we go back 12 months just because it tends to sell on a bit less frequently.
Okay, and the motivation behind this seller, because I mean that's a drastic difference when you look at purchase price versus the ARV.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah. So typically with houses, we hear a lot about the maximum allowable offer, that MAO being 70% of after repair value. In land, it's a little bit different. So we don't offer more than 30%. And that's like after some negotiation, we'll get up to 30% of market value. So it does give us quite a bit of room because there's a bit more risk with vacant land.
Okay.
And that room helps us allow for the risk. And we'll talk about, it being worth $60,000 when I actually sold it for. So to answer your question about the motivation,
Right.
the motivations for vacant land ownership are exactly the same as for houses. So in this case, it was a lady who owned the land. She was living with her daughter. They lived up north, I want to say Maryland. And the grandson was the gentleman that reached out to me and was just asked, like, hey, we got this letter a long time ago. We found it in her things and we're all ready. We'd like to just let
ready.
it go now.
Ready to move forward, move on. Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide. So again, no repairs. So where was the money spent, right? So you had to spend some money to get this thing moved. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I'm glad David talked about the expense involved with wholesaling, because I think sometimes it's sold as a sexy way to get money for $0 down. And well, yeah, but how do you find these deals? Like, they're not just sitting on Zillow waiting for you. It takes a little bit of effort. So for us, we choose to do direct mail marketing. This particular lead cost us about $2,000 in our marketing campaign we did in January. Once we get a property under contract, then we've got to sell it. So in David's deal, he had a VIP buyers list. Because in land, we don't specialize in a particular area. You saw this was in Bunnell. We go where the deals are. So we have a very wide net that matches a very specific criteria. So because of that, every time we get new property, we are starting pretty much from scratch with new buyers. So one of the cool tips that we use is selling to the neighbors. Land, much like certain brands of cars, tend to attract a certain kind of people that are just dedicated to this product at all costs. So we'll just go right out to the 100 closest neighbors, send them a letter that says, hey, I just got this deal, and if you're interested in buying, give me a call.
Interesting.
And then creating my ads. I always throw in that cost there. I do outsource. Yeah, I spend the big bucks.
Yeah.
There's actually a VA service called Landmaster. They're not business members, so don't worry about that. But it's a VA service you can just submit your projects to, and they'll just pop back your stuff. And that's super important because in land, I have no granite countertops. There's nothing I can show you. All I have is location, location, location. So as you can see from our marketing, that's all I'm talking about. What kinds of mobile homes can you put on that property? What kinds of recreational activities are close to this property? That's what I'm selling.
Gotcha. It's kind of selling the dream, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, very good. So let's see how you did. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So not bad for some, dream selling, right?
Yeah.
So sold it for 50. So that was right in line with the ARV. So that was pretty decent. What were some of the issues that you faced as you were trying to close? And maybe talk a little bit about the timing too, because with homes, it's really quick. But with this deal, it wasn't so quick.
Yeah. So with vacant land, your buying pool is a little bit smaller. So it may take a little bit longer to sell. Certainly not flipping things in 15 days. It could happen, but in my experience, it takes about a month to move the land. So we got this property in October. We were a little bit lazy about getting our ads done. So this was just out and ready to market in early November. And we had, oh my gosh, we had so many phone calls on this property. And I would have put a realtor on it because I don't like dealing with all the tire kickers. That's just me. Like, you call me when you're ready to give me some cash. But okay, fine. We didn't get a realtor on this one because we did wholesale it. We did not own the property until closing. And in January, this couple called us frantically because they saw our ad on Facebook. and they said they just fell out of escrow with another piece of land close to this one because there were some wetland issues on the property, but they saw our ad, were super excited about it, and wanted to put in an offer right away. And I said, no, you need to go see the property first
Oh,
and check out the neighborhood. Then I will
Okay.
accept an offer. They immediately drove the property, ran down to the property appraiser, to the clerk, like right, in the county, called us from there and said, "Yep, we checked the zoning. We're in the office right now. It's everything we want. We're putting in an offer." But one of the lessons that I learned from this one cost me
Okay.
$5,000. So
yeah, I was
hope
gonna
you
ask,
guys.
what did you do? What would you do differently? I was gonna ask you that. So,
Yikes. All right. So I had created an email for this. So whenever we have our marketing laid out for property, we have a scheduled step down. So we'll market it out there for the full $60,000. 2 weeks later, it goes down to 58. 4 weeks later, we just step down the prices, right? In my email to her, I was offering the property on terms
to the seller, correct?
to the seller for $55,000 on terms, and I would give you a $5,000. I'm sorry, it was $60,000. It was full price, and I was offering a $5,000 discount if they were going to close within a certain time frame.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's the buyer, not seller. Buyer. Okay.
I'm sorry, yeah, the buyer. So the buyer comes back to me and is like, okay, well, I'll pay the $55,000 cash if I can get the $5,000 discount that's in your email. And rather than taking 2 seconds to be like, that doesn't sound quite right, let me just check my email, I just said yes. Like, that was a $5,000 snap judgment. I guess I will not be doing again.
Won't make that. Yeah. Best
From
way to
now
learn
on, everything will
sometimes.
be let me double check, let me verify. But
Okay, very
oh
good.
well. So
All right. Well,
I went from 37,000 down to 32.
right. At the end of the day, still made out pretty well. So
I
not
know, but
bad.
that
Not bad.
5,000 would have been nice.
Oh boy. All right. So let's go to the last slide. And on this slide, again, just like David, you got your contact information. If
Yep.
anyone has questions, want to reach out to you or talk to you, learn more about it. Let's see. I think we have just one question. Let's see. It's from Art Musselman. Would a paved road have made much of a difference in the market value?
Not really. No, it would have been minimal. Yeah, I'll leave that alone. There was another question that I'd like to answer from Carlin's Almanor. May I do that?
Okay. Yeah, I think it was actually for the panel, but go ahead. It says, what is the one thing you wish you knew about when you were 20 about real estate? So go ahead. We got a few minutes.
Not necessarily about real estate, but in general, I wish I knew at 20 that I could retire at 30. I would have done things a little bit differently. That would have included a lot less alcohol and a lot less McDonald's.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
Thank
Hold
you.
on. I think we had one more question sneak in here.
Okay.
I thought I saw it. They may have put it in the chat. Guys, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A portion of the Zoom meeting. Otherwise, I missed them. So let's see.
there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Romeo. What was the land zoned for and any limitations?
Oh, excellent question. Yes, it was zone residential and there were no limitations, which was why it was so attractive and my phone was ringing off the hook. So no HOAs, you can have any animals you want. There was no minimum to the amount of animals you could have.
Wow.
You just had to have a safe number. What the heck that means. You could
Safe
have
number.
a tiny house, you could have a mobile home, which you didn't see my whole ad, but in my ad, I'm showing you pictures of what kind of floor plan of a mobile home you could have, what kind of tiny house floor plans you could put out there, because those are the biggest questions that I get about vacant land. What can you put out there?
Okay, and that kind of ties to this next question that came in from Jenny. Did you say the utilities were at the site? Were there utilities there?
Well and septic. The electricity was, it's hard to see from the image, but on either side of my property are houses. So there is electricity there, but well and septic is required on the lot.
Okay, great. Very good. Let's see if there's any more questions. Oh, hold on. I'm not sure if there's I'm just going to read it. I'm not sure if it's a question, but it just says danger in building a house there when neighboring property could build a factory next door. Saw that. He
Yeah.
said, it's from Romeo. He said he saw that happen before. Okay.
Yeah, Romeo, they were all zoned residential, so that would have been unlikely. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. I think that's it. We're actually ending on time tonight. So,
Oh, Jeffrey had one more question.
oh, you see one in there?
It's the
Okay.
last
Yeah,
one.
one more.
All right, man, so close. All right, it says who bought the land, contractors or regular buyers?
It was just a cute little couple that was relocating from Virginia. They had a little condo down here, fell in love with the area, and wanted to build their dream home. Regular folk.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Well, that was excellent. So thank you for walking us through that deal. Got a little bit different perspective from the land side, but very similar to wholesaling a house. So
Yeah.
thank you. We appreciate you having the willingness to put yourself out there and talk about the deal. Thank you.
Can I just say for Vivian, I will be in the meeting after the meeting. So if you're there, we can continue the conversation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, off to you, Jay. It's yours.
Awesome, fantastic. I was trying to make sure I was keeping my mouth closed to didn't jump into any questions again that time. So awesome job, Stephen. Thank you so much. And thank you to David and Jantzen as well for presenting those deals and giving us a lot more information to go on there. And again, you know, one of the ways that you learn about these things is by being a member and participating in these meetings. Of course, not just the general meeting, but all of the county and focus groups and things like that too. Now it's time to move on. And Buffy, if you will jump ahead on the slides there one time. It is time to move on to our main event for the evening. And that is going to be questions beginners ask as a panel discussion. Now, as you heard Stephen say for our last two guests that were on there, if you have questions tonight, please use the Q&A panel to put them in. But let me also remind you that one of the things that we try to make sure we do before we ask any panelists to come on is to kind of give them an idea of what questions are going to be asked. So we already have several questions that are going to be presented to this panel, and you're going to get to hear those answers. If you have others, please do put them in the Q&A, but understand that we may not be able to get up to all of those. So just make sure you're aware of that. But that's our event tonight. Now, you're wondering, so who's going to be on this panel? Who's included? Well, we actually have that on our next slide so that you can see a little bit more about who's going to be included. Your host tonight is going to be another one of our great board members, Phil Georges, and he will be kicking things off in just a moment and introduce you to our awesome panel and tell you a little bit about their areas of specialty and what they do and why we've included them. But that's going to be Lee Walsh and Ron Smith and Joe Seagle, Mari Lynch, another board member, and Anthony Kusky. And I think you probably heard enough of me. So Phil, let's hand it off to you.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us this evening. My name is Phil Georges. I am the program director this year for CFRI, and I am also the commercial group leader, which meets on the second Tuesday of every night. So I'm going to start off by having our panelists introduce themselves, and introduce yourself as though we're talking to beginners, because that's what we're doing. So if you do something, explain what it is. I'm going to start with Lee Walsh. I know you do mortgages, and you might want to say a little bit about it.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I am Lee Walsh. I'm with a company called Radar Mortgage. Myself, Lila Amalbert, and Victor Cisneros are my cohorts in this. And we've been a CFRI sponsor going into our third year. We are a full service shop. So we do fix and flip, investment property, 1 to 4 family, 5 unit plus. We're moving into ground up construction spec home for investors. We've got a couple of those in process. We also do the traditional lending, primary home, second home. We're fully licensed to do all of those products. And that is pretty much our main focus that I focus on in the company is fix and flip investment property lending.
Okay, thank you. Ron Smith, tell us what a fix and flipper does.
Yes, I look for properties that won't qualify for a mortgage for an owner occupier, because maybe they've had an addition put on without a permit and will mess up their appraisal, so they won't qualify for an FHA, VA, or even a lot of conventional. And then I buy it and bring it into compliance, usually with Mark Orman, and then rent it out or flip it.
Very good. Mari Lynch.
I started
Tell us
out
what
in
you-
Pennsylvania. Go ahead.
Mari Lynch, tell us what you do as a buy and hold investor.
So that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm basically a landlord. I own rental properties that I rent to families and individuals. And my strategy is I don't do as much turning things over as I do buy them and hold on to them.
Okay. And Joe Seagle, you're an attorney.
Among other things, yes, I'm a lawyer. Been practicing. I'm in my 25th year of practicing law, real estate law. I also wear another hat as a title agent. We own a title agency here in Florida, and then I'm also a land trustee. We have a land trust company that holds properties in trust for a lot of real estate investors all over the state of Florida. We usually have around 1,000 properties in trust at any time to keep people's names off the record and to provide some not estate planning, but asset protection for them to hide that ownership. And then in the law firm, we do a lot of LLCs, real estate transactions, deeding, anything pretty much related to real estate development, and real estate investment.
Very good. Anthony Kusky, tell us what a wholesaler does.
All right, so yeah, Anthony Kusky, we do wholesale. I've been doing that for about 15 years. So we're basically the ones that are out there beating the pavement, trying to find the deals that are out there. We do a lot of direct mail, cold calling, text messaging, things like that. Also do some new construction, renovations, and transitioning to mobile home parks. And so that's been our latest venture.
Okay, thank you. And so we got a bunch of questions already submitted to us. If you have additional questions, put them in a Q&A and we'll try to get to them. What I'd like to do is ask these questions as if I'm the person and I don't know. This is my very first day hearing the word real estate. Okay, so so I'll begin with a question. How do I find properties? This is for anyone in the panel. How do I find properties?
Yeah, I'll say probably one of the most cost-effective ways right now is get out there and drive for dollars. Drive-in neighborhoods are going to be the least amount of competition, and those people that you're targeting, whether through knocking on the door, mailing them a letter, calling them, are probably going to have less competition than, you know, someone like me who's mailing to code violations and all sorts of other stuff.
Anybody else want to add to that? How do I find properties?
So I have used very traditional, old-fashioned, I'll just say lazy ways as well. I have called realtors and said, what you got? What's listed? What's happening? What are you selling? And get on their lists. And it's less effort on my part. I have to pay for the commission that, you know, that's a part of the deal. But if they know their neighborhood and they know the area, makes sense. So you don't have to be, well, you have to know what you're looking for, but you don't have to do as much work as you do as a wholesaler. And I've still made money on the properties.
Okay. Hey, Anthony, you had said that you do driving for dollars. Explain that to.
Yeah, so driving for dollars is nothing more than just going through a neighborhood. Generally on the driving for dollars, we look for neighborhoods that are better neighborhoods that an investor is going to want to be in. So we may not go to a neighborhood that the entire block is distressed, but we try to find those houses. Actually, like one I went to look at today that another wholesaler sent me. Drove up to it. The grass was long. It had a bunch of stuff just laying all over the carport. It's basically ones that look like they are not maintained from the outside. Christmas lights still up in March, May, June are always a good sign. That's an automatic. Shingles missing off the roofs, things like that.
What if you see a U-Haul truck in front of the house?
It depends on the condition of the house. Pods, U-Hauls, dumpsters, stuff by the curb. Somebody just got evicted, things like that. All great signs. You basically are just looking for anything that's going to distinguish an ugly house in a nice neighborhood, because even a neighborhood that has an HOA, they may have a tighter control of it, but you're still going to be able to tell. Like someone might have got a new roof from insurance, but their whole flower bed is all weeds and the lawn is all weeds and the paints looks pretty bad compared to everything around it. So you always got to take it based on what your surrounding houses are.
This question is for anyone who's listening. What is earnest money?
I can answer that one. It's a consideration. Every contract that's entered into, you have to have a peppercorn, is what lawyers call it. You have to have given something of value in exchange for that promise for them to sell you the property. So the buyer puts down earnest money, showing that they are earnest in their intent to purchase the property. So they put this money down, and that is their consideration. So they've taken $100 or $1,000, or had one today come through at $25,000 out of their pocket and handed it to someone to show, hey, I've got skin in the game. I'm serious about that. I'm going to buy this. It's not a gift that you are going to sign this contract, because gifts are not enforceable in the United States. If someone says, hey, I'm going to give you my car, and then they don't give you the car, most cases that is an unenforceable promise. You can't sue them if they don't give you the car. But if someone puts $100 down and says, I promise I'm going to buy your house, and here's $100 with that promise, and you sign a document saying, well, I promise I will sell you my house, then that is no longer a gift. So if anyone breaches that, they can sue each other. So the earnest money is promising that you are earnest in your intent to really go through with the promises you've made in the contract. And if you don't, there's some money there that the seller can take, your skin in the game, to pay themselves for the grief that they suffered for your breach of their contract.
No, this next question is also for you, Joe.
Okay.
How do I avoid getting sued?
You know how we've been quarantining? Okay, do that times 10. Just lock yourself in your house, never leave, and don't do any business. Don't sign any contracts. That's the best way you can never get sued. I always tell people, I can't prevent you from being sued. I may be able to prevent you from being sued personally by setting up entities around you that will protect you from being sued, we hope. But I always tell people, I mean, even if, let's say we put a house in a land trust or an LLC that you have bought and you're going to fix it up and flip it, if you are the one who goes in and does all the work on that property yourself personally, and you fix the plumbing, the drainage problems by simply putting 5-gallon buckets under each toilet in the crawl space, you're going to personally be sued because you did that, not because the land trust or the LLC did it. You did the work. You were negligent and fraudulent in what you did. So I tell people, anything that you do personally, you can be sued for. So the best things you can do is just try to prepare that if you are sued, you're going to be in the best position to win the case as quickly as possible, which is usually, unfortunately, in state court at the summary judgment level. It goes up the chain, goes on for a few months before you can end the case. If you get sued in federal court, it's a little bit easier to get the case dismissed earlier if you're set up properly. So we're always, very important to draft a lot of documents around the situation. We see a lot of potential litigation between investors who go into business together with their joint venture agreements, their little slipshod and they leave out a lot of details. So those sometimes go sideways. And a lot of times too is knowing when you don't know something and spend some money to prevent anything from going bad. I tell people, surround yourself with good lawyers, good title agents, good real estate brokers, good CPAs, and do not be afraid to email those people or call them if you have any question. We have a client, one time he called me and he said, I just need you to do a deed from my company to myself personally. And I'd done all the work for him over the years. I'd set up the company, and I knew how it was taxed and everything else. And I also knew his CPA. And I said, have you talked to your CPA about this? He goes, no. I said, why don't you call him first? So he calls the CPA, and the CPA calls me the next day. And he said, I'm so glad you told him to call me before you did that deed. I said, I know why. And he said, yeah, it would have cost him over $60,000 in taxes just because you did that deed. I said, that's what I figured. And so simply by doing that, that client saved $60,000 in taxes. Whereas if he had just gone online and done his deed online with one of those form making machines, he would have saved. Well, actually, I didn't even charge him for the advice, but he would have maybe saved a little money in preparing the deed, but it would have cost him a lot of money in the long run. So we tell people, think before you act, get it in writing, and just always know, hey, there's a potential. I'm out here, I'm doing business. There's a potential I'm going to be sued for something. I got to be ready for it. And the way I'm going to be ready for it is having good people surrounding me and a good insurance agent. That's another one. I've got these people with me who are going to help me that if I get sued, I'm in a great position that it's going to be handled. It's going to go away as fast as possible. And even if I lose, it's not going to be that bad.
Hey, Phil,
Okay,
this is
so-
Lee. If I could I circle back to the earnest money and ask Joe a question?
Sure.
Go ahead, Lee.
In earnest money, what are the pitfalls you read the sales contract, and there's a good chance they could lose that earnest money? Are there pitfalls on that, things people should be aware of?
Yeah, there's always a way to lose the earnest money. If the buyer breaches the contract, they're going to lose the money. For instance, everything goes through fine and then they just don't close and they don't have a good reason, a contractual reason to not close. They're going to lose it. They're going to lose the money. So, we always tell people, be prepared. Most of our real estate investors, I'll tell you, I mean, I see $100 usually as an earnest money. If you can find a seller who will take the $100 earnest money deposit, go ahead and do that. Because that's what we usually see from the real estate investors who are buying. On a regular deal, regular real estate closing, if you see anything under $1,500 as an earnest money deposit, that's going to be pretty low. $2,500 to $5,000. The one that came in today, it's on a $3.9 million contract, and it's $25,000 earnest money deposit immediately and another $250,000 after their due diligence ends. So the larger the deal, the more skin in the game the buyer usually has. And most of our investor deals are smaller deals, and usually with more unsophisticated sellers who don't really pay that much attention to it. So the $100 is pretty typical. And I've had investor buyers who, start going back and forth with me over their $100 deposit. And I go, it's $100. If you can't lose $100 and move on with your life, you probably don't need to be in real estate investing. That's what we see. And yes, it's very common that we see earnest money deposit disputes. If the amount in dispute is less than $10,000, actually less than $25,000 now, I tell the parties as a title agent, whenever we're holding them, I tell them, work it out. You guys need to work this out. As a lawyer who has done litigation, who has been sued, who has sued people, you don't want to go to litigation over anything less than $25,000. It is a waste of your life to do that. So work it out. And usually 99% of the time, we had one last month, it was about $20,000. and they thought that, they started out beating their drums and beating their chests. Oh, we're going to fight. We're going to fight. And finally, I had a private conversation with the realtors, and they were able to get the parties to calm down and come to a resolution pretty quickly over that too. So there are times when the buyer will lose the money. And again, that's just one of those things as a real estate investor. Don't put up more money than you are comfortable losing. Whenever you graduate up to the multifamily, and Phil can tell you this, it's a lot more money as that earnest money deposit. And you break out in a cold sweat when things start going sideways and you think, oh, I'm going to lose this 100,000. It gives me heartburn too, as the lawyer in the deal. I start going, oh man, we got to figure out a way to try to get this 100,000 back. But yeah, it's definitely a bone of contention very often in contracts.
Okay, so I followed everybody's instruction and I got a deal. How do I know it's a good deal? Anybody? Ron, you want this one? You're muted.
Muted.
Since
Sorry.
it's just the 6 of us, you
Yes.
guys can stay off of mute unless you got something going on in the background that way.
Okay. Check similar comps and try to evaluate the whole package. Is it overbuilt for that area or subdivision? And just look at condition and try to figure out how much work it needs to make it either mortgageable or rentable, depending on your goal. And ask other people for their opinion too, because their opinion often helps. I often ask Rob Arnold to evaluate properties for me.
So you ask a real estate broker or agent to give you their opinion.
To make sure that I'm on the right track that I think I am, yes.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
And I think know your bottom line, know what you're prepared to go to, and be prepared to walk once you go past that line. Don't fall in love with the deal. Fall
Yes.
in love with your money.
Make sure you're buying it reasonable enough you can make money with it.
Yeah.
And I think starting out, if you pick some certain pockets that you want to be in, especially if you're looking either to buy and hold or to flip properties, you should kind of get an idea of what properties. So say whatever XYZ neighborhood, and you're tracking these 3 or 4 neighborhoods, you'll start to get an idea of just looking on different sites of what they're selling for. As I said, I had a deal come from another wholesaler, just randomly showed up in my email today. I don't even know who it was, but looked at it quick and just looked at the numbers quickly. And then obviously being licensed, I was able to jump on the MLS, but I was able to pull numbers pretty quickly. But for those that work for us, and when they're going through leads, they'll just go ahead really quickly and look at Zillow and say, okay, is it like 40% under it? And I know Zillow's a horrible tool, but if you want a really quick assessment and it says, hey, this property, they want 110 and Zillow says it's worth 200, let me just start looking into it a little more and start trying to then fine tune the numbers. But if we have someone says, hey, I want 200 and our VA looks at it and Zillow says it's worth 150, then unless it's certain hot areas that we look in, they don't spend a whole lot of time vetting the deal. So I think, I mean, obviously having access to a realtor or somebody who can pull comps, but you're not gonna be able to do that on every single site. So there's a lot of software out there too that you can use. PropStream is one of them where you can pull comps and that anyone can buy. That's probably one of the best ones that I know of if people just want to pull comps.
One of the shortcuts I do all the time for clients is very simple things. I will Google the street without the number, street, city, zip, to see what's selling on the street, what those prices are. Then I'll look at what the name of the development is it's in. And realtor.com, if you just put the name of the development, the city, and the zip, it will give you everything, all the history, everything for sale in that particular development. So there's a lot of free ways that you can get the information if you just dig. be persistent.
And try to keep up on the areas that you're trying to specialize in on what things are selling for there.
And I would just add as a buy and hold investor, while you're doing that, you also need to look at what the rents are in the area and run your numbers, run a spreadsheet for the year. And don't forget to include, your maintenance, repairs, insurance, and the possibility of vacancy, because you have to pay the mortgage whether there's a tenant in there or not. So that can make a deal that looks good to begin with not look so good.
Hey, Mari, since you're a buy and hold investor, do you use like Rent-A-Meter or anything like that? Do you find if there's any validity in those numbers for a quick ballpark?
I do look at them, but I tend to go, the one that has been most dependable has been Zillow for that. It's not good for valuations in my experience at all. It's crazy, but it's pretty good at rent.
Okay.
A realtor can also give you rent comps, just like they can give you sales comps.
Yeah, but only for things that are listed on the MLS, which
Right.
tends to be a different, a specific level of property.
I found them really work well with condos because it usually, if it's a condo and there's property managers and realtors managing it, that will be in there. That's helped me a lot with condo pricing on rents.
You guys did a really good job explaining what's a good deal, but I'm afraid to make an offer. What should I do?
Make sure you, sorry. Make sure you have an inspection period in there where you can get it looked over.
Yeah, I was telling a girl who works for us today, I said, you need to, she was scared of she's new licensed. And I said, you need to take, what is it? Massive imperfect action. And I said, what happens if you offer too high? She's like, well, and they accept it. So, well, I got a contract. I said, well, what can we do? Well, we can either go back and renegotiate it or cancel it. I said, yeah. So the worst thing that can happen if you mess up your numbers and they say yes, is you can cancel the contract. If, like Ron, you have a due diligence period. But in my opinion, the only way to succeed in investing in real estate is you need to take action. Just make sure you're smart about it. So like Joe said, if you can only put up a $10 or $100 deposit, because that's what you can lose, great, then do that. If you're scared to make the offer and you go super low and they don't accept it, that's okay. It still gives you a chance to make offers. And the more you're actively doing it, the better you're going to get, the more comfortable you're going to get. And so mistakes are okay as long as you have a contingency in there to help you get out of that mistake a little bit without dragging the sellers on, of course.
And you can renegotiate after an inspection, once you have an inspection in your hands, and make sure that the seller, that you can prove the seller gets a copy of that inspection, because they have to disclose that to anybody else.
Okay. I've been hearing people making a lot of money in real estate. Is this a scam or is this for real?
Damn, stay away.
So far, it's for real.
And there's always people that make more than others, and some really set the world on fire and some just make some. So it's everything in between.
And in real estate, there are scams and there are people trying to part you with your money. I think it's one of the real values of CFRI and the other RIAs across the country is that, there's a whole lot of people at these meetings that will help new people understand what's going on. You'll get so much advice and so much help. You just have to go and ask and start shaking hands and meeting people.
And I think with anything, just take it with a grain of salt. There's so much free education out there these days. You don't even have to pay for somebody. I mean, I pay to be in groups, but you don't need to pay anything to become educated. Just do your homework, do your research, and just like anything, vet the source. And as long as you do that, it's, you can do well. But also, we have a couple deals right now that we have under contract, waiting to see what title comes in because it almost seems too good to be true. So we're not, we'll wait and see what happens with that. But, it's one of those questionables. Hopefully it's not a scam and these are good deals that we're going to be able to close on. But you just, you don't know sometimes. So buyer beware.
Hey Lee, what kind of questions can I expect a lender to ask me?
It's for anybody to help you and you're trying to get a rate or a program or get funding, you really have to expect to answer about anywhere from 8 to 15 important questions, depending on the kind of financing you're looking for. The first question we usually get is, what's your rate? And if I'm a private lender, I only have one program and that's all I do, it's easy for me to answer that. But if I'm a full service lender and I have multiple programs, I've got to ask some questions. You've got to be prepared to talk about, how much money you have to buy, what price range you're looking for. Are you looking for a single family home in the mid 150s, or are you looking for a 5-unit plus? Well, those are different questions. And so you have to be prepared to talk it out. Otherwise, if you just call somebody and you ask a couple quick questions and you get a quote, you probably won't get the best deal available for you. And find some people that'll really take the time with you. A lot of clients are new, they're new to investing. And a lot of times they don't know the questions to ask. So be prepared to have a discussion. Don't call 5 people and say, what's your rate? And if you don't like it, hang up and call the next one. Have a discussion with people and let them find out what it is you're really trying to do. And it's going to be about your finances. Do you have what we jokingly call, do you have a day job besides investing? Some people can qualify for a Fannie and Freddie 4-family investment property at ultra low rates, 85, 80% financing. And they think they have to buy at hard money because that's what they've been hearing everybody talk about. So, be prepared to have a conversation, not just get a rate.
Anybody want to add to that? I guess you're the lender, Lee, so I guess we'll leave it there.
Okay.
How do you guys decide? Well, this is probably more for you, Maury. How do you decide which properties to keep as rentals?
Of course, first would be the numbers, like I said, to run the spreadsheet and see what the profitability is. Another one to really look at is your estimate of maintenance costs. Older properties, things that are going to be needing renovation sooner. You've got to take those higher costs into consideration because you are going to end up having to pay that if you're going to hold on to that property. I put a lot of stock in my in schools. I really hold on to properties that have good schools. People will continue to rent places that have, so that's kind of a premium that doesn't show up on the books necessarily, but is really good to me. And whether those, for me, whether those are the kind of tenants in that area that I want to continue to attract, or, do I want, is that the property, based on my experience with that property, has it been, do people stay in it more than a year? I don't really want tenants. I don't prefer tenants that are going to stay a year and move on. That's a lot more work for me. So I'll keep a property that tends to attract tenants that stay for a longer period of time.
I guess this is for you, Joe. What is title insurance and why do I need it?
That's a good question. Well, first you sort of have to think about the history before we had title insurance. In the old days, a lawyer would go in and search the records, what was actually recorded, and they would give an opinion or an abstract and say, okay, this is the title to the property, and here's what you have. You've got some easements and, things like that. And all you had to rely on if the attorney was wrong is the attorney's malpractice. And also one of the things that attorney did in his opinion or her opinion was completely assume that every document had truly been signed by the person who it said appeared there. And they assumed that all of the heirs, if there was a death, had been notified and signed everything and things like that. And over time, well, and that's still the way it's done in a lot of countries to this day. There is no title insurance in a lot of countries. The concept doesn't exist because they don't have the records that we have in the United States, the record systems that we have in the United States. So over time, the problem became that lenders would say, well, we're not going to lend on that because, or we're going to charge a higher interest rate because there's a risk that you really don't own the property. And now you're going to put our mortgage on a property that you don't really own. So then we're out of our money. All we have is to go back on you. So they came up with the concept of title insurance, and it ensures that, number one, that the search was right, that the public record documents that are recorded are true and correct. And if there is a problem, that one of those documents was signed by fraudulently, that the insurance will take care of that. For the lenders, in addition to all of that, it also ensures that they are in the lien position that their policy says they are, whether they're in first lien position or second or whatever, so that if there's any problem that comes up when they go to foreclose, title insurance will fix it. And so title insurance, because that exists, then lenders could say, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they could say, okay, well, we're going to bundle up $1 billion worth of mortgages, and we know that they are all in first lien position, and we know that they all are valid liens on the properties that they are on. So we can sell this $1 billion worth of mortgages on Wall Street to investors as bonds, mortgage-backed bonds, and get cash back now that we can then lend out to more people. So title insurance helped to open up lending markets to make it easier for more people to buy homes. So you don't have to pay cash for a home as the only way you can get a home. There are a lot of countries in the world where the only way you can ever buy a home is you pay cash for it because there's no lender that will lend on it. So that's one of the things it does here in the United States is it literally ensures the American dream can occur. You can own a piece of dirt of the United States. And so that's the big thing it does. And other things that it covers that the lawyer's title opinion alone does not cover, because we have a lot of people, since we're a law firm and a title agency, we have people who come to us and say, I don't want title insurance. I just want you to close it. And we go, okay, fine. You get no title insurance. But I want to search. Fine. Here's a search. And here's what happened. But if there was fraud in any of the deeds in the past, if there was a missed heir, anything like that, that opinion means nothing, and you're not going to get paid anything, and you can't sue for malpractice because I said, hey, I don't know if all these were signed properly. I don't know if all these people really existed. And we've had instances where we had people walk into our office and provide fake IDs. And that's one of the reasons that, anytime you go to a closing, the title agent says, I need to see your ID. If you sign online now, you show your ID to the camera, it runs it through credential analysis to make sure that your ID is real. For us, most of our buyers and sellers, they run their IDs through the same credential analysis to say, yes, this is truly this ID of this person. And then when they show up at the closing, we ask to see the ID again. We compare it to what they provided before they ever came into the office that was run through the credential analysis to make sure they are who they say they are. Because that's really what title insurance is doing to a very large extent, is making sure that the person who shows up to sign those documents really is the person who is supposed to be signing those documents. I had a woman come into the office one time, and we'd already done a little bit, but there were some red flags on her anyway. And that's another thing, we're trained to see red flags. And we'd seen red flags on her. and she was borrowing $500,000 to buy this property. And she handed me an ID of a lady who she looked a little bit like, but a lady who was supposedly 89 years old. And I looked at her and I said, "This is not you." And she's like, "Yes, it is. That's me." I said, "You are not 89 years old." I said, "That is literally powder in your hair to make your hair look gray. I can see it from here. So get out of my office." She was getting ready to put a $500,000 mortgage on this property. And they were going to basically rob the bank of $500,000 at my table is what they were trying to do. And I kicked them out of the office. So, and one time I'll admit it slipped by us. It was back in the days when it was not on our radar. The red flags were not on our radar. So at that point, the title insurer, yes, ended up paying back the money. And then they go back and they try to get back as much money as they can from everybody else they can. It's called salvage, but that's what title insurance does. I mean, it covers things like that when your title completely fails, when the lender's lien is not perfect. It pays lender's fees. It pays the lawyers. It tries to fix it. If it can't fix it, then it pays you to the limits of the policy and says, "Here you go. We can't get it fixed." So that's why it's so important. I tell people, it's a one-time premium. You pay one time at closing. It's not like homeowners insurance that pays every time, every year. And it's also not like homeowners insurance in that it's sort of like homeowners insurance. If you imagine that your homeowners insurance agent comes in and completely fireproofs your house and floodproofs your house and fixes your house to where nothing bad can ever happen to it. That's what title insurance is like. We try to fix every potential claim before or at closing so it will never become a claim. And then you pay us for that. And that's how we earn the premium. And then, yeah, if something bad happens.
So basically, you recommend we should get it when we buy something?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if I'm going to lend you money on it, you're going to have to.
You're going to have to, right.
Okay.
And Joe, could you also talk about, there's two types of title insurance. There is the lenders,
Yes.
which we won't close a loan without title indemnifying us for anything. But then there's also an owner's policy, which is separate.
Right. And technically, the owner's policy under federal law now is optional. And you'll see it on a closing disclosure. It's optional to get owner's policy. And the industry fought against that optional being placed in the forms, but we lost because the feds don't believe that owner's title policy is very important to get. But over the years, I've had too many owners who have been paid on a complete loss of title. And I just say, I don't know why you wouldn't get it for the price that it costs. It's so worth it.
It's a minimal add-on.
Yes. Yeah. The owner's policy covers the owner to ensure that they do own the property, subject to certain easements and other things, restrictions that may show up in the chain of title. We're not going to ensure that those are not there. We're going to ensure that they are there, and we don't cover those. And the lender is ensured that, hey, yes, Mr. Lender, you are in first lien position. There's nobody else ahead of you. So whenever you go to foreclose and oops, there was a defect in the legal description. Oops, a mortgage from a prior closing isn't satisfied yet. It may have been paid off, may not. Now the lender's out of business. Where do we go? Title insurer, fix that. That's your job. Go fix it. And that's what they do. They have banks of lawyers in-house and paralegals that they deal with that all day, every single day of the year, fixing those problems.
Hey, I was at one of these real estate meetings. I heard the word "subject to." What does that mean?
You want me to? That means you're buying it subject to the mortgage. A lot of law firms and title agencies just won't do that because they think it's wrong. It technically is a violation of the due on sale clause in the mortgage. And we warn people about that. But a lot of investors, there's not enough money in the deal that makes it worthwhile to fully buy it and get a new loan and pay off the loan that's there. A lot of our investors who are buying subject to, they want to buy it and they may fix it up a little bit and then put a renter in there and hold it until values increase back up to create more equity so that they can then sell it and pay off the mortgage and get the balance on the difference. Or others buy it subject to because they're like, hey, the mortgage rate that they've got is so great. I'm just going to buy it subject to. It's going to take me 3 months to fix it up and resell it. So, for a very short time, I'm going to buy it subject to. So we have we do a lot of subject to closings every month. And we always still obtain a payoff or reinstatement of the mortgage for the closing so that the investor really knows what they're buying. One danger that we've seen lately is that a lot of sellers forget that they went through that HAMP, H-A-M-P modification, and their first mortgage turned into 2 mortgages. And so now instead of just a $136,000 first mortgage, they actually have a $136,000 first mortgage, but they have this new $33,000 second mortgage that was the payments that they were behind, late fees, attorney's fees, and everything that was turned into a second mortgage that they signed and they just totally forgot. So now they've got $160,000 or $170,000. And the investor goes, well, then I can't buy it because at $170,000, the property is now way underwater and there's no way I can hold it any length of time, even renting it out month to month to a tenant to make it worth my while to bother with it. So I warn investors who are looking at subject twos, and I warn investors who are buying properties, period, right now. We have probably had 3 HAMP mortgages pop up in title searches that the seller, I really don't think they were malicious. I literally believe they forgot they had signed all those documents 2 or 3 years ago to put a second lien on the property in favor of their lender to be paid off in 30 years from now. So that's why another reason to have title searches and buy title insurance, because you're going to find out, what's really on the property. I know there are still some people out there who do their own documents. They buy subject to at the kitchen table with the sellers. Okay, do that, but you do it at your own risk and peril that you could be getting into a very sticky situation whenever you've sat on the property and now you go to sell it and you've got a buyer and you go to sell it and find out that there's actually another $30,000, $40,000 or $50,000 owed that you didn't even know about. And now you can't sell the property ever, and you're stuck in the deal. So, but that's subject to, and we do a lot of it, and I will be speaking on that in April at length.
Here's a question for everybody. We just met at the CFRI meeting. Can we have coffee and just get to know each other? What's your response?
I do it. I've done it. It's a good way to get to know people.
And I do that too.
Yeah. To me, honestly, it depends on the situation. I'm always happy to help people, but I also want to see what we can do to bring each other value, because to sit and have coffee with every person sometimes can really take up a lot of your day. So if someone calls me and asks me, hey, do you mentor, do you this, do you that? I tell them away that, hey, here's how we can help you so we can work together. And I think it really just kind of depends on where you are and where your situation is and the amount of time you have. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think you need to approach somebody with a way that you're gonna help them. And what I mean by that is, hey, if I bring you 20 addresses of distressed houses, can we sit down and talk for a half an hour? And it's almost making them do a little bit of legwork, because I've had so many people come up to me after stuff like this. Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? And then there's never follow through. So I think somebody showing you a little follow through at the beginning, at least to me personally, shows me they're serious and I'm willing to take some time to go ahead and help them at that point.
And I know I come off a little cold or harsh sometimes, but it's like today. I've been in meetings literally since 10:30 this morning I had 10:30 to 12, 12 to 6, now 6 to 8:30. And what happens is I get those emails, I get those calls all the time, and we have a standard, email we send back out to you, especially new investors. Brand new investors, you probably don't need land trusts and LLCs and everything from us yet. What we can provide for you is education. And we have procedures and we have courses and we have things that we do to help you without having to actually sit and talk with me. And because I'm really focused, I'm focused on actual meeting with people who have transactions going on right now, closing with me in some form or fashion. And those really suck my time all day, every day. And unfortunately, I just don't have time to spend on the phone coaching a new or mentoring a new investor, unfortunately. But we do have people on our staff and we have people in our system who are, that's what they do. That's exactly what their job is. And they do that and they do it extremely well. So if you ever email me and you're a new investor, I am happy to email you back with that information that will then connect you in to our system. But going and having lunch with me or sitting down and having coffee with me, it's probably just not going to happen, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Well, I think now we're probably going to do it more this way too, instead of meeting at Starbucks.
Yeah.
I might have Uber drop you off a coffee, but
Hey, can I quit my job and do real estate full time?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, that's a loaded question. It depends what you're trying to do. It depends what you have in savings. It depends on if you're going to take this as a serious business. Because just like everything else, especially getting started, this is a business and this is a job, and you have to be diligent and consistent and structured in it. If you think you're going to just jump in with no savings and say, hey, I'm going to buy a house and rehab a house and sell it in 60 days like they do on TV and replace my income, that's probably not going to be the smart move for you.
You should have been around when I was 24 and tell me that.
Hey, although taking massive imperfect action, look where you are.
They should have some backup income to hold them over until they get really rolling.
That's one of the first questions I always ask a new investor too, is what's your day job? What do you do right now? And I always tell them, I'm like, look, if you don't have regular income coming in right now, or if you do have regular income coming in right now, you're probably going to be part-time at this for a while. And I always stress, please, please, please join CFRI. Please get into CFRI and learn from that first. And then you'll get better and better. And yeah, I've had lots of investors who started out, they had full-time jobs, started doing it part-time on the weekends, working with wholesalers on the side and learning from mentors inside CFRI who are now, it's their full-time job. They were able to quit their job. I have one client who I started with, in 2002, who they were working full-time. Now they're both retired and they have, I think they're up to about 27 or 30 properties that they own with renters in them. And that's their income now. That's their full-time job, is just running their rentals.
Hey, what's the difference between a private lender and a hard money lender?
from this to this, it's probably one of the fuzziest terms out there. I'm a hard money lender. I'm a semi-private lender. And explaining that to people a lot of times, it only really confuses it. I think it is really a fuzzy term. I see people saying, I only want to talk to a hard money lender, or it is a really fuzzy term. I think it almost means the exact same thing, depending on the definition. I mean, has anybody seen a real hard definition of the two?
I mean, for us, the difference between our private lenders and our traditional hard money lenders that we use, and we do use both, mostly private, but it's just relationship, really. I can call my private lender and say, hey, here's the deal. Here's what I need. Here's when I need to close. And say, okay. Or, hey, this deal's a little tighter. Can you do this and this terms on it? Okay. And so it's, for me personally, it's more of a relationship. It's something you build on trust over the years, and it's more of a fluid for us, where we have private lenders on, one of the parks we own, we have private lenders, and there's 4 of them grouped together. But that same lender will do other stuff at a different rate and something else at a different rate. And so, but it's also the same person that I can, text or email if I have a question or, so I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do the both with a hard money lender, but there's definitely, I think, a lot more flexibility. We don't have the mortgage applications with our private lenders, anything like that. You just got your note, your mortgage. One of ours is an attorney prepares it, but I've never done a credit app for my private lenders.
They're going to go look at the property, right? They're more concerned about the property. To me, a true private lender is somebody really lending their own money locally, who has maybe a limited supply of money, but they lend on a regular basis. They roll it over. That's probably the true definition of a private lender. But, I know I've got a friend in Tampa that he does business in 40 states, works off a warehouse line just like I do, and he calls himself a private lender.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just add one thing on that real quick. So Phil, I'd say, so your private lenders are the people that you talk to, your doctor, your neighbor, your mailman. You'll be surprised who has money that you didn't even know, that's willing to lend it for a decent rate of return. So yeah, just like you said, Lee, it's their personal, like all my private lenders came from relationships and either selling them houses or meeting them at the closing table while they were, one was lending to another on a deal. And so it's all came from, who as opposed to, looking online or going to CFRI to find private lenders or hard money lenders, which, we do that as well.
What's a closing?
An event.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people in other states, they call it escrow. In some states, they call it settlement. In Florida, it's generally called closing. And it's the day when the buyer has signed all of their documents and given their money to the closing agent, who is usually in Florida, it's either a closing attorney or a title agency. And the seller has signed all of their documents and given their documents to the same escrow agent, title agent, closing attorney, whatever you want to call them, or whatever they are. Once all of that comes in, all the money, all the documents come in, then the escrow agent, title agent, closing attorney, we disperse the funds back out and we send documents to recording and we issue the final title policy, and it is closed. We've actually had a lot of angst and depression and consternation over the past few months because with COVID, a lot of signings, people sign their documents in far-flung places, and we don't have the documents yet. And we actually had one last week where the folks were in Timbuktu somewhere and they signed at 2:00, and the notary with them said, okay, I'm going to now take your documents and send them to us, the title company. We don't know what happened. For whatever reason, we did not get those documents that day. We didn't get them till the next morning. And even then, we only got a scan of the documents, and it's at our discretion if we will if we'll disperse funds based on copies or scans, and we most of the time will. And so they immediately were, calling. I closed yesterday. I signed everything at 2:00. Why do I not have my money? And it was a lot of processing and crucial conversations we had to have with these people to say, no, we don't have your documents. So that's why you don't have your money yet. We eventually did get hold of the notary. We did get the scanned documents. We did not get the actual documents till the following Monday, but we went ahead and wired their money to them that day. So a lot of people, need to understand that until that, and I work with other title companies all over the state as trustee and as an attorney, and there are a lot of law firms and title agencies that will not disperse money until they have the hard, original, wet, signed copies of documents in their hands physically. So the days of funding, you get your money within seconds after the documents are signed, those went away years ago. The days of I get my money sometime that day that I signed, it can happen. It just depends on when you signed, what time of day, whether it was at the title company or outside, and whether there is an institutional lender involved. If there's an institutional lender involved, they have to then get the documents too and look at them and make sure everything is done properly in their way that they want it. And then they'll go, yes, now you can release our funds. So we tell people nowadays, it's like, don't be surprised if on the closing day, everything is signed, all the money has come in, but for whatever reason, we just simply are not allowed to disperse the money yet. And we have a lot of very angry sellers now. We'll have angry buyers who go, well, I can't move into the house yet. But it's just the nature of the beast now. It's just the state of things with the pandemic, with wiring. I don't know if people knew this. The Fed went down last week for hours completely. It moves trillions of dollars a day, every single day. And it just didn't work for something like 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock that day, anywhere in the country. So things happen. Our bank has had a problem before that all day long, they said, we're getting wires in and we're putting them in, but for whatever reason, the Fed is not getting them and we're not getting anything from the Fed. So, things happen at banks, things happen at, with the notary, and sometimes it's just delayed. Now it's on us to communicate that to the people and let them know that. And we try to, but sometimes that too, we're just really busy and we just don't realize that it hasn't happened and it falls through the cracks. So we just tell people closing day. Yes, that's closing day. Everything's signed, all the money's in, and you're closed, but no money's gone anywhere yet because documents are not here yet. And that's our job. Get documents, get money, and then let it all go. So, yeah.
Hey, Mari, how do you know what to charge for rent? Your mic's off.
Didn't want to make any excess noise. So checking the market, there are tools available out there. I do find that Zillow is a pretty good predictor of what's going on. It's also important to know what the trends are, because you don't want to find out halfway through the year you charged too little and you could have charged more. Kind of like in buying real estate, it's okay to reach, it's okay to list with a little bit higher rent. And you can always find a tenant that you really like and flies through all your clearances and negotiate that rent down. But of course you can't ever rent it up. And the real true answer is you can set rent at whatever a tenant will pay. So that's ultimately the real rent.
Okay.
Now, do you look for a certain cap rate or your rate of return to say more basic on the properties, Mari?
I monitor my rate of return on all of my properties so that I know which ones to keep, which ones to roll over and what's going on with that. But I really base the rent directly. If I'm not making the rate of return, it's not because the rent is wrong, it's because the property is wrong.
Okay.
And I factor in over time because I do buy and hold. Of course, there's appreciation. That doesn't show up in the first round. In the first set of numbers I run on return on investment, it's just rent versus expenses.
So if you were a newer investor, would you take a lower rate of return for a better area?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really where the buy and hold strategy comes in because you can afford to make money over the long run.
Okay.
I don't have any money. How can I buy a property?
Private lenders, other people's money.
OPM.
OPM.
Find a deal where there's enough equity in it that people will lend you the money 100% to buy it.
That's a good answer.
I mean, I think that falls back to the private lender question. I mean, we borrow 100% on everything. And from private lenders, not from hard money lenders. Of course, that comes from relationship. I mean, we talk about CFRI networking and any joint venture. If you have a great deal, you can most likely find somebody to partner up, whether it's to renovate it, to buy and hold it, to wholesale it. So if you can get the good deal, you can find the way pretty easily. Or put $10 up, like Joe said.
But if you're expecting to use one of the local lenders, find out what their criteria is. Some of them won't take frame houses. Some won't take houses older than 1980. It varies on that particular lender.
Yeah, everybody has a different flavor that they were interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I started with a cash advance on my credit card.
There you go.
Good job.
Hey, why are appraisers so expensive?
You know, it varies that I've found it. If you're buying a primary home and it's a single family home, that's the least expensive appraisal. If you're buying a 4-family unit that needs extensive renovation and the appraiser has to tell you not only what it's worth today, but what it's going to be worth after you do all the work, you know, and also give you what the comparable rent will be on that property. That's a lot of work. So you'll find that appraisal could be 3 times what a single family appraisal is. We get that question a lot from people that just bought their primary home that paid $400 for an appraisal, and we're telling them, hey, this appraisal is going to be $900. And it's because a lot of times of all those other factors. That's, you know, a big difference.
And that appraiser has a lot of research to do, and he's got some liability when he puts his numbers on it.
And I think now in today's market, it's so busy that appraisers are picking and choosing the work they'll take. A couple of years ago, appraisers were begging for work. Now they're all trying to hire extra people to help them keep up with the work. And so the price goes up a little bit. They're actually, appraisers now I've seen are bidding on work. You'll put a job out and it might stay out there for a week before an appraiser will take the job, and you know, they might bid $100 higher than what you thought it would be. And if you want to get it done, it's either wait or get it done. So the cost is going up on it.
This is for everybody. What areas do you guys invest in?
Geographically?
I assume that's the question.
So,
Well,
go ahead, Mari.
I said earlier, I'm really biased towards schools. I really I really aim for grade A schools for rentals.
Yeah. For us personally, it just depends on the strategy. I mean, mobile home parks will pretty much anywhere in the south, east of Mississippi for the most part, more conservative states, wholesale rehabs within about 30 to 40 minutes from where we live, just because we notice they get neglected if they're any further than that and you're not checking on the contractors all the time. Wholesaling, I mean, realistically, you can pretty much do that anywhere these days. Although we like to keep it where if we have to go to the property to check on it or meet with the seller, we're able to do that. But there's really no limitation on that part of it.
I stick with houses that are 20 years old or older because the cash flow is better.
Good strategy.
Anything for you, Lee?
I stopped buying property about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I came up in a family of investors. My mom and dad were investors. I was the kid that painted the houses and mowed the lawns. So I stopped. I haven't bought a piece of real estate in 10 years. But I'm 73, so I figure I'm about done with real estate.
You're about halfway through the whole game, huh?
That's right. I got about 40% left. So.
How many LLCs and land trusts do I need, Joe?
That's a good question. We get a lot of new investors who come to us and then they've gone to some boot camp over the weekend and they call me and they say, okay, well, I need 20 land trusts and 4 LLCs and a Colorado family limited partnership and an Alaska LLC and a Nevada LLC and I go, no, you don't. Most new investors will not need anything except when they buy their first deal, they may want to put that into a land trust to protect it away from anything else they own and protect it away from them. Once you start buying more and more, if you're buying and holding, usually we would recommend that you probably want to have an LLC to hold your buy and holds for tax purposes and to keep it away from you, even if that LLC is the beneficiary of separate land trusts for each property. If you are also doing wholesaling or flipping, buying them, fixing them up and reselling them within a year of each of purchase, I usually recommend that you would have another LLC that acts as your flipper because that LLC is going to be deemed to be a dealer by the IRS, and you want to keep your dealing away from your holding at all times. You never want your holding your holding to be deemed to be a dealer. I can explain that to you some other time because it's pretty deep. But you just if you're buying and holding, you don't want that with the flipping because the flipping or the wholesaling dealer activity is taxed and treated completely differently. But the problem is once you're a dealer for real estate, you're a dealer for all of your real estate held in that tax ID number or that Social Security number. So if you are now a dealer and you have, maybe you're like Mari and you have houses that you've bought and in your holding, if Mari were then later deemed to be a dealer, then that applies to all of her houses that she holds now. And she would never be able to take deductions and expenses and depreciation on those until she actually goes and sells that house because it's inventory. So I give that talk a lot to a lot of new investors and pull them off the ceiling and go, no, you don't need a lot of LLCs. You don't need a lot of land trusts. I would love to take your money, but I'm not going to. Ethically, it'd be wrong. And I just tell them, if you've done a couple of wholesales this year, call me back because we may need to start looking at doing an LLC for you because we want that LLC to be the dealer, not you individually. If you've got some that you're buying and holding, okay, call me, we'll discuss it and we'll see what you need. But it's a case by case basis. And I've had a lot of people who jump into investing and they set up a lot of LLCs and then for whatever reason, they get back out of it. And then they've just got all these LLCs that they wasted their money on. So just establish a relationship with a lawyer, CPA, real estate brokers, have that relationship there. So whenever you get to that point, you have somebody you can call back and say, okay, I think I'm there, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Kind of thing. Then we'll take it from there.
Hey, Ron, how do I estimate repair costs? Your mic's off. Okay, technical difficulties?
There, I'm back.
There you go.
Okay,
I think Junkers to Jewels, if you have time to take it, is an excellent training for how to estimate repairs. But you can call a rehabber like myself, and I can give people ideas on particular houses, and it can vary some depending on things like pitch of the roof, the age. If you're doing a rewire, if you have to tear out all the old wire to make it a 3-wire house. So it can vary, but just asking people that know how to estimate it, I think, is the best.
okay.
Hey, Ron,
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
if you're trying to quickly assess something and say the house needs everything, do you ever throw like a number per square foot, like $30 or $35 or $40 a square foot if you need everything?
No, I just add up the total in my head and then deduct that from what the market value is and put in a percentage that I need to make. And if it's an older house, like built in the 30s and 40s, I think I need to make a little more because you get more surprises with those. Some of the septic tanks are just concrete block with a dirt floor back in those days. So a lot of things can get riskier with those real old houses.
So as far as assessing repairs for me, we've learned from being there and going through it and having contractors on projects and assessing and things like that. But there's definitely, I think, enough data you can find online to get ballparks. We always have a ballpark on everything, like, you know, $3 a square foot for painting, just saying, you know, $4 a square foot for flooring. And we have some general ballparks, like 10,000 for your average kitchen. And depending on the neighborhood and stuff, that can go up and down depending on where you are. But I know there's sheets out there, but part of it may be just going to Home Depot and talking to them and finding out the cost of products that you may use and starting to make a price list. But I would always estimate high, especially in today's market, because as Ron knows, prices are going through the roof as far as lumber cost and pretty much everything going up.
And bear in mind, your repair costs are going to be different from a rental than for a flip, depending on the neighborhood and what you're expected to do. Most people expect granite now and real nice cabinets and real updated bathrooms. And so it depends a lot on your neighborhood too.
I think that's a great point, Ron.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to over improve a property. You see most people that are new to it tend to keep thinking it's a home.
Yes.
Not a home they're going to flip or make a rental.
Because they want to make it as nice as if they were going to move into it.
Exactly, yeah. And it's the hardest thing not to do for somebody new.
Yes.
Too much home and garden.
Yeah. You can't get emotionally involved in that flip.
I do estimates for people where they want to move major walls, load-bearing walls, and they don't realize how expensive it is, and you should have engineering diagrams for a load-bearing wall, and they don't realize that. They just have a vision of what they'd like to make it, but it may not be profitable.
And don't forget the time involved, especially as you're running your for rental ROIs, how long are you taking the property off market to do this repair versus that repair? Because that goes straight to the bottom line.
If I'm going to wholesale, should I tell the seller that I'm wholesaling their property?
So it's going to depend on the situation. So obviously us doing it for a longer time, we kind of approach things a little bit differently because we're willing pretty much to close on 90% of the stuff that we get. But as newer, I don't ever tell the seller anything's a done deal. So anyone in this business will start to realize that we use the
I'll
term
put it away
vendor
soon. Thank you.
pretty loosely. And so I may say that, I work with a group of investors. And so what we'll do is I'll have my investors come by just to confirm everything, make sure it looks good. And we'll go from there. But normally I don't just go blatantly out and say, hey, we're going to take this property that we just negotiated you down on, and we're going to flip this to somebody else for a profit. I will go ahead and openly tell somebody if it's a deal that I don't think we can move. I'll tell them that hey, this numbers on this one are a little tight for us, but I do work with a group of investors. And what I can do for you is we'll go ahead and put this under contract. And I just make it very clear that we are going to be marketing it to our investors in our due diligence period. But if I do not get anybody who wants the property, we are going to cancel it. And so anything that we're questionable, we are very open with it. But on the other answer to your question, no, never guarantee you're going to close on it. Once you get the contract, we just had somebody the other day give us a 5-star rating day one when we got the contract. They already went on Google, they rated us. I was like, look, I still need to go ahead and do our due diligence on the property. I got to bring my partners through here, make sure everything looks good. So it's not a done deal yet. I'll let you know as soon as we can, but don't go doing anything drastic until I give you the 100% go ahead. And so I think it's just communication. And there's this, we kind of use this clear grayish. So you want to be clear, and then you're somewhere in that gray a little bit as far as your answer. But I definitely never guarantee anything to anybody until it's closed. I let people know, hey, we're going to do our best. Just always be honest with the people to the best of your ability, with obviously realizing, this is a business and we need to do what we can to make a livelihood with, so being able to help people.
What are the pros and cons of having a real estate license as an investor?
Anyone?
3%.
Access to MLS.
You're held to a higher standard if you're licensed.
Which can be good and bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
It can be a double-edged sword. I think only once has it gone against me. But for credibility, it helps. Being held at a higher level of standard, you can use that, especially if you're going against from a wholesaler. If I'm going against other wholesalers, I definitely tell them that I'm a licensed broker, things like that. And then if we can't buy the house, it does give you another exit strategy. Hybrid investing has gotten popular. So where, hey, I can't buy it at this price, but you know what? I'm with, for me, EXP, I'm with EXP. I can go ahead and list it for you. And we can go ahead and you get now the unique standpoint of us looking at it from an investor standpoint instead of a realtor who may tell you different numbers. And so I think there's advantages to it 100%.
I think what time is about to run out, so I'm going to ask one final question for everyone. What would you recommend the best way to get started in this real estate business?
Join CFRI.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go to a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Relationship is 100%. I mean, join CFRI, talk to the vendors, talk to everybody you can. You'll learn a lot from people's mistakes without having to do them yourself.
I think, and also you can't do everything. Talk to a lot of people, find the niche that you can focus on, that you feel good about doing, and dig into that. You can't be a flipper, a renter, a wholesaler, a private investor, a repair guy. You can't do all those at once. You may be, after years of experience, work into all those things, but start with one or two good things that you're really going to focus on. And it might take you 6 months to figure out what that is.
And get to know your area well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I want to thank all of you guys for being on. A lot of good questions. Sorry, everyone, I couldn't get to all the questions you guys had listed, but I tried.
Thank
Awesome.
you, everybody, for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now,
So we appreciate it. Thank you, panelists.
You're welcome.
Big clap for you guys. We are going to be closing the meeting out and going to the meeting after the meeting. It is a free interactive event via Zoom tonight. It start about 8:35. Since we're going to close out a little early, we'll start that a little early. It is a separate login. It is in the chat. If you did not get it, as soon as I finish talking or right now, I'll put it back in the chat. It is for members only. You have to get a new login. So you have to go to this link in order to be there. And we will see you then. Be sure and sign up for Joe's class in April and Sandra's class, which is a week from Saturday. And we look forward to seeing everybody next month. Good night.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Great job.
Thanks.